the 13th chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
At that very time, there were some present who told Jesus about the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. Jesus asked them, "Do you think that because these Galileans suffered in this way, they were worse sinners than all the other Galileans? No, I tell you, but unless you repent, you will all perish as they did. Or those 18 who were killed when the Tower of Siloam fell on them. Do you think that they were worse defenders than all the others living in Jerusalem? No, I tell you, but unless you repent, you will all perish just as they did." Then Jesus told this parable. A man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came looking for fruit on it, and he found none. So he said to the gardener, "See here, for 3 years I have come looking for fruit on this fig tree, and still I find none. Cut it down. Why should it be wasting the soil?" The gardener replied, "Sir, let it alone for 1 more year, until I dig around it and put manure on it. If it bears fruit next year, well and good. But if not, you can cut it down." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
The best definition of the title for this morning's message comes not from a theologian, but from a fictitious attorney, Alan Shore on Boston Legal, one of the best written shows ever to be on television. Shadenfreude, said Shore in one of his legendary and admittedly implausible closing arguments. From the word, in German, Schaden and Freude, damage and joy. It means to take spiteful, malicious delight at the misfortunes of others. We used to dismiss this as the ugly side of human nature, but it is much, much more than that. Recently, a Stanford professor actually captured Schadenfreude in a brain scan. It's the physiological medical phenomenon. When we see others fall, it sometimes causes a chemical to be released in the dorsal striatum of the brain, which actually causes us to feel pleasure. Schadenfreude is what this morning's gospel is all about. It is the emotion behind the question to Jesus. In light of earthquakes in Haiti, an earthquake with a tsunami in Chile, and another earthquake in the Philippines on Wednesday, the crowd could be thinking what we might be thinking. We can explain the scientific phenomena around the events, as geologists tell us what happened and why it happened. But in our Schadenfreude, we want to know if God was some way behind it all. Was there something wrong with those people that caused them to experience a major earthquake? While all we felt on the early morning hours of February 10th was a 4.8 relatively minor tremor in the Chicago area. Schadenfreude always begins with the mindset of those people. People who are not like us. Scholars don't know anything about the disaster the crowd is talking about, but we do know what they were thinking, because everybody knew what kind of people the Galileans were. They were politically rambunctious and theologically deviant. They went too far again and probably had whatever happened to them coming to them. Everybody in Judea knew that the Galileans were a bad brood. The political purge just proved that point. That was what the people were thinking when they asked Jesus about those that had been executed by Pilate. And much to their surprise, Jesus has been reading the newspapers too and answers back with a definitive no. Then he brings up his own current event. What about the tower that collapsed on the people right here in Jerusalem? Those victims were straight and narrow, right-thinking Jerusalem types, and they were just standing there. Wrong place, wrong time. They weren't big sinners, because everybody knew that Jerusalem was the global capital of piety. The implication of Jesus' news bite is that bad things can happen to super saints right in Jerusalem, just like things can happen to those rebellious Galileans. Life's just not as simple as you thought.